The Quest 3 has a battery problem. Well, actually, that's wrong. It's just not true. The Quest 3's battery works great. The Quest 3's charging works great. And when you need more time than the internal battery gives you per charge, the Quest 3 runs just fine while plugged into a mains-powered USB power adapter. And it runs great from external batteries too. But that last one in particular is catching a few people out, and a few brands as it has, because they work fine if it's the right kind and you use it in the right way. There's countless reports of buzzing noise from batteries used with the Quest 3, or batteries that can't even keep the Quest 3 charged properly, or they don't last nearly as long as they should, or a horrendous buzzing noise. Did I already say that one already? Count it twice anyway, because it's friggin' awful! But the problem the Quest 3 actually has with its battery, with external batteries, and with charging over link cables and all that sort of stuff is people. Not the product, but people. A lot of people just don't understand how this stuff works, or think they do, but have picked up some misinformation along the way and are spreading it far and wide across the lands of the internet, to my endless frustration. But perhaps the worst crime than that simple ignorance is the people at Meta. They've just done a trash job of explaining all this to their customers. Hopefully, I can clear that up a bit for you and give you some useful guides to getting gear like battery packs that will work with your Quest 3 and the best way to use them so you get the best out of them. Hello again, I am Blunty, and let's just assume that you will be finding this video useful and give my little thumb button a bit of a tickle, would you? It's right down there. A little tickle right down there. A minute. While you're down there, I'd also be really interested if you'd pop a comment and tell me about what battery accessories or battery banks and packs or whatever that you've been using with your wireless VR stuff, Quest 2, Quest 3, whatever, and how it's been working out for you. Have you hit any problems? How have you solved them? I'm curious. Now, as a framing device for this chat about power, here is the Binbok VR T3 Plus Headstrap for the MetaQuest 3. This is a review sample Binbok sent me. They wanted to send me one of their new controllers or something, but I asked for this instead because it's far more interesting. And as you can no doubt see, it's very similar in many basic ways to the other head strap I reviewed a couple of weeks ago and have been using ever since with my Quest 3 quite happily. In fact, it's quite similar to a lot of head straps out there, except the Binbok VR T3 Plus here has an extra trick. It has a battery pack, a magnetically detachable, hot swappable battery pack that promises to extend runtime of something like 2 hours of the Quest 3. Is that noise aggravating? I probably shouldn't do that on mic. Oh, didn't do it that time. Fantastic. Perfect. It feels pretty decent. The fit and finish are good. The extendable part of the headband feels strong and robust. The ratcheting is smooth and relatively finely adjustable. Not quite as good as the other one I was reviewing, but pretty good. The overhead strap is deeply cushioned with memory foam. There's plenty of cable from the battery mount to mean you get a little slack even at full extension, so you're not unnecessarily straining anything if you have a gigantic head. And there's a cable tidy clip with room for other cables to run through there if you need, like headphones or whatever. And the battery mounting system seems pretty foolproof, except with one exception. Because while it snaps into place pretty securely, as you just saw, and you can do it blind, behind your head really easy, just click. If you've got long hair, I don't know if that might get caught in this. It's been a very long time since I've had to deal with long hair. It used to be halfway down my back, believe it or not. But the problem is, you can actually snap it upside down, where it doesn't work. So there's a little care needed there. I mean, if it doesn't make the noise, you've got it upside down, that's fine, but it's weird that they wouldn't design it with a one-way clip system. I would have. But in general, the whole contraption snaps into place on my Quest 3 very easily and securely, so, off to a good start. I haven't had this battery fly off me or anything like that yet, so seems fine. But let's take a closer look at that battery pack. See, it charges at 5 volt 3 amps, and that's pretty normal for this type of thing. And I measured the charge time from dead flat to 100% at just about spot on 3.5 hours. The power output, well, that's also 5 volt at 3 amps. And that might be a problem, but we're going to come back to that. And its capacity? 8,000 milliamp hour. A little smaller than I would have expected from a battery pack of this physical size, but it should indeed be able to deliver on its promise of a couple of extra hours in VR. So, let's test that, shall we? Oh dear God, no. You heard that, right? I haven't filmed that bit of the video yet, but the microphone would have picked up on that buzzing, that horrible, skull-piercing, bone-shattering buzzing. And let me tell you, as an autistic person with sensory input issues, that's unpleasant. It seems a lot of similar products around right now for the Quest 3 are suffering from exactly this kind of problem. And what's funny is Binbok refused to send me the twin battery version of this product, where you can continuously swap out one battery for another. You know, have one on charge, this one goes dead, pull the other one off charger, go like that, put this one on charger, and away you go all day long. Well, probably not all day long, because these burn down a little bit faster than they recharge, but whatever. And they refused to send me the twin battery version because in their testing, they hit this buzzing issue that's been plaguing a lot of similar products. So they sent me the single battery version with apologies, while they tried to fix the problem with the twin battery version. The problem is, it's the same product, there's just an extra battery in the box. So despite them sending me the single battery version of it because it didn't, apparently in their testing, trigger the buzzing, certainly does on mine. And hey Binbok, listen up, listen real close, because I can tell you what's happening here. At least, I'm pretty sure I can. It's concerning me that your engineers hadn't figured this out, because I don't have any qualifications in electrical engineering, I'm just a nerd, and I figured it out. Now, breaking all of this battery technology and USB-C power delivery stuff just wide open is way outside the scope of this video. So I'm just going to simplify it down to some basics, some useful basics to keep in mind when you're looking at products like this and trying to make a decision about what's going to work for you. The charger, the little wall wart thingy that comes with the Quest 3 in its box, supports two different modes of power delivery. 9 volt at 2 amps, which is 18 watts of power, or 5 volts at 3 amps, which is 15 watts of power. But the Quest 3 itself supports another power mode. It can slurp up 9 volts at 3 amps, which is 27 watts of power. So, as you might imagine, with both the 9 volt modes having more total wattage than the 5 volt mode does, ideally, you want to input something that can give the Quest 3 a 9 volt output voltage. This goes for both running it from a plug-in power source and also from battery packs, which is why I think I'm having issues like the buzzing with the Binbok battery, and why other people are having issues with their batteries as well. Because while wall warts take AC juice and squeeze it down to low voltage DC, and good quality USB-C chargers are made to do so across a few of the standards, the 3 I've mentioned are not all of the standards, by the way, they're just the 3 that are relevant to the Quest, and that's all pretty easy for them to do. But the battery packs have an extra problem. The voltage from the battery itself, the cells inside here, already squirts out at a set DC voltage. And while it's not all that complicated these days to step up or step down that DC voltage to a different DC voltage, the nature of those circuits that do that often produce a little bit of noise and whine, or indeed buzzing. Particularly if you're trying to hit a price point for a product on the market, you might go with one of the cheaper circuitry systems that can do that result in that noise. There are fancy ways to do it that don't result in that, but they're more expensive. And often, that's an unnecessary expense because the noise they make is very quiet and it's over there in the wall socket or somewhere else, not here. Because in the case of the Quest 3 batteries, of course, they're mounted on your head where, well, that's where your ears hang out. And it's often going to be pretty easy to hear that noise. But worry not, I have 2 fixes. One is a solution to avoid it, and one is a workaround so you don't experience it. Solution first, and this one is the brand's responsibility. Just design your accessories to actually give the Quest 3 what it wants. Design your Quest 3 accessories for the Quest 3. See, the commonality between each and every report I've seen of buzzing and whatnot on Quest 3 battery packs is that they're all based on existing products made for the Quest 2. They haven't been designed from the ground up for the Quest 3. Binbok and a lot of other brands, in order to get something on the market as quickly as possible for the Quest 3 launch, which is a perfectly sensible business decision, they just simply sort of redesigned the straps from the existing Quest 2 products. So all you have to do is change this bit, basically. That's the only bit that needs to change for these straps to fit on the Quest 3 physically. And then they just assumed that their existing battery solutions would be fine. I mean, USB power is USB power, right? What could possibly go wrong? But they didn't do enough testing on the batteries, and rather more vitally, the supporting electronics themselves before selling this stuff to people. So, while the Quest 2 seems to have been absolutely fine being fed a 5-volt USB power standard, there's something about the Quest 3 and its power systems that seems to have it prefer higher wattage 9-volt standards of USB-C power delivery. And that is, I think, where the problem is. Somewhere along the chain of natural voltage output from the battery, from the cells, through the DC to DC conversion circuitry is causing this buzzing. There's an electrical engineering way to describe what's happening here, but it's enough for the layperson just to understand this much. The conversion makes noise. The conversion isn't perfectly efficient, and some of that inefficiency is noise and heat. But noise is the one we notice. So the solution is to re-engineer the battery packs to properly provide the 9-volt output standard by changing how the battery cells themselves are wired up, or by using a better designed DC to DC converter. Because again, like I said before, not all of them make noise, or at least not as much. For example, I have this hulk of a battery pack that I'm currently testing for an upcoming review. Sub-bell, etc. to keep in the loop on that one, because it's cool. But this is a very smart device, and it supports a bunch of different USB-C power standards, and it doesn't buzz on any of them at all, ever. Not even with the Quest 3. So that's the fix, but it's out of the hands of me, and it's out of the hands of you, and it's up to them. So what about the workaround? If you've already got a battery solution for the Quest 3 that you're having the buzzing issue with, as indeed we've heard this one can do. Interesting fact. The Quest 3, when charging from a low battery state, say something below 75%, it'll use much more power to charge quickly, so your downtime is minimized. But near its full capacity, it'll slow things down to a much gentler charge, sometimes called a trickle charge. This is done to help protect the battery and give it a longer total lifespan. Again, there is a nerdy electrical engineering answer to all of this, but suffice to say, it's like, what's a metaphor? Like blowing up a balloon. When it's nearly full, you blow more gently so it doesn't pop unexpectedly, right? And this kind of thing is extremely common in today's electronics. My iPhone does it too, for example. In fact, my iPhone even tells me when it's switched over to trickle charge, and it tells me why it's done it, which is also part of why it's becoming anecdotal advice from users of various kinds of battery packs as they've been testing and experimenting, trying to figure out why this buzzing happens and all that sort of stuff, that their best results are coming from letting the Quest 3 drain on its own down to below 75% and then plugging in the battery pack. Doing this means the Quest 3 will pull at full charge rate, not the slow charge configuration. And this seems to be the difference maker between the battery pack working as you would expect, solving another issue that people have complained about, by the way. I've seen a lot of reports claiming that the Quest 3 is draining their external battery and its own internal battery at the same time. That's not how this should work, by the way. But people have reported that plugging in an external battery after the Quest 3's own battery is at least down to 75%, makes the external battery drain first and at least maintains the Quest 3's remaining internal charge, or simultaneously running the Quest and charging the internal battery at the same time. That's how these things are intended to work. However, with the Binbok product here, I didn't actually have that issue. In fact, in my tests, I got just shy of 3 hours from its snap-on battery, and the Quest 3's internal battery remained at full charge the entire time. And the handoff was seamless. When the Binbok battery died, there was a little beep, and it just kept running. Didn't even lose a frame. My test scenario, by the way, if you're curious, was running the Quest 3 native version of VR Chat. I sat in a private world with a media screen and watched a whole bunch of streaming media through it. That seemed to me to be the most consistent and repeatable test that I could think of for sucking down the battery at a steady and, again, repeatable rate, so I could test and test and test again. However, the whole entire time, every last one of those 175 minutes of power from the Binbok battery, I had that buzzing. And it was maddening, frankly, especially as I was using the Quest 3's built-in speakers, not headphones, which might have helped block the noise somewhat. But again, I wanted a standard configuration for the testing. And let me tell you, those tests were miserable. Like, even with the noise of the anime turned up full blast and everything, that buzzing, it was just drilling into my skull. I hated it. But here's the thing. Here's the trick, the workaround, so that doesn't happen. After the Binbok battery died, I kept using the Quest as I drained it down to about 30%, 35% I think, of its battery remaining. And once the Binbok battery was recharged, I plugged it back into the Quest like that. And what do you know? Silence. perfect silence. The Quest 3's charging mode, while at low power on its battery, is, as I explained before, designed to charge faster. And asking the Binbok power circuitry for this fast charge power mode did two things. It entirely eliminated that piercing buzzing, and it reduced the time it gave me in VR before itself went flat again. This time, I got an extra 1 hour and 35 minutes, a 47% drop in runtime. Why? Well, at least in part, it's because running in this higher power mode made the battery pack noticeably hotter, right here, in fact, in the middle. So there was a lot more energy being wasted, expelled as heat. And heat in almost all common battery chemistries leads to less efficient performance and lower battery performance. And secondly, it's because the battery was being used not just to run the active Quest 3, but also it was recharging the Quest 3's internal battery at the same time. Yeah, the Binbok here is absolutely capable of running the Quest actively and recharging the Quest simultaneously. It recharged my Quest 3's battery from 35% back up to 56%. So, in other words, about an hour and a half to 2 hours of extra runtime depending, and about a 20% charge to the internal battery. Not too shabby. Especially as the Binbok is one of, if not the, cheapest options for a product like this on shelves right now. But the fit and feel. That's my biggest problem with this product. It's just not as comfortable as my other strap. With or without the battery, which also acts as a bit of counterweight, so the balance changes, which some people really, really like. It helps it balance on their face. They don't feel it, pulling down the front of their face as much. Although the Quest 3's design, the center of gravity is much closer to your face than the Quest 2 was, so that's less of a problem from the get-go with this particular device. But with or without the battery, there's something about this strap and this back of the head brace and this top strap. I could never get it quite as comfortable as my other very, very similar head strap. I can't quite figure out why that difference is. I think it's mostly about this back brace thing, because on my other head strap, this wiggles around. It can alter its angle depending on how I want it to fit. Wiggle, 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 stop. Whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah, it flexes, but it doesn't swivel. That's the issue. But beyond that, while indeed having the battery on the back does counterbalance the headset fairly nicely, it does drastically increase the overall weight. So I have a lot more weight pressing down on this top strap. I feel that a lot more. I have to have it slightly tighter on my head to stop it moving around, because all of this weight back here also changes the center of gravity and changes the inertia. So when I turn my head, this thing keeps moving a little bit longer. With the other strap, without the extra battery weight, this is really, really good with inertia. The Quest 3 is really good. I can whip my head around. It doesn't feel like the headset's going whoop, whoop, sliding a bit on your face. With the battery, so much extra inertia that happens again, which just doesn't feel good. The whole experience wasn't unpleasant. Like I said, I sat for many, 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 many hours throughout my testing of this thing with and without the battery on, all that sort of stuff. And, it never resulted in like the VR rings on my face or anything. I never had to do it up that tight, but it was noticeably a little bit less comfortable than my other strap was. So I'm not entirely convinced that I'm going to keep this on my Quest 3 permanently. I'm going to continue using it for a while and see how I feel about it, but I'm going to switch back and forth between my other strap and see how I feel after a while. But yeah, on first blush, I don't like it as much. Your mileage may vary. Everyone's comfort levels are different with that kind of stuff. The other thing I didn't mention is it has a charge-through feature as well. There's a USB port on the bottom of the battery. I've got it upside down at the moment. There we go. The USB port down there. So when this thing goes flat, there are two things you can do. You can plug in a USB port power back there, and you can have it just charge the battery while you're using the battery, the internal battery. Or you can press the little button on the back there once, and it will charge this battery and feed power to the Quest 3 at the same time, which is going to slow down how quickly this thing charges, naturally, because, it's splitting power two ways, but that might be very, very convenient, depending on the state of charge you've got on your Quest 3 at the time and how much more time you want in VR. But yeah, I would really love it if they redesigned the battery, because I don't think there's any power control circuitry in the band itself. It's all sitting in here as far as I can tell. So if they redesign the battery to feed out, you know, the 9-volt system to get rid of that buzzing, we can have the best of both worlds. Because again, if the Quest is already charged, it only takes a little trickle charge to maintain the battery. And the rest comes from this battery, which means the total running time from this battery before it goes flat is massively increased. What did I say before on the math? About 45, 47% more runtime if it's not also trying to recharge this thing from a low power state at the same time. That's what I want. That's why I want the redesign. Not just to get rid of the buzzing, but yes, to get rid of the buzzing, but also so I can use this thing while it has a full charge to get a very long runtime total out of it. And also, yeah, the 2 battery solution that they've got, where you've got a little desktop charger you can just plop the batteries down onto, so you can plop one battery down. You don't even have to plug it in, just plop it down on the charger thing and swap them out on the fly. I really like that idea too. And there are a few different straps out there that do something like that. One of the more popular ones is the M3 from, the brand has just slipped off the top of my head, that one. Very, very popular choice. But that also has been widely reported as having this buzzing issue as well. And I would bet fairly heavily it's exactly the same cause that I think is going on with this. Again, I'm not an electrical engineer. I don't have the, you know, desktop lab equipment to test this properly. But from my understanding of how all of this works, I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here. If you are an electrical engineer and you do have the equipment on your little desktop down in the basement there somewhere, your hobbyist electrical engineer or something, and you've done the test, please let me know down below what I got wrong. I'm always eager to learn, but I'm pretty sure I'm pretty damn close to the mark here. Anyway, very long video considering the conceit is a review of a head strap, but I wanted to talk about all this other stuff too, because there's been a lot of discussion about it in the Quest 3 communities and a lot of misinformation, misunderstanding, and confusion about exactly what's going on here. So, hopefully this has been informative, interesting, helpful, or entertaining. I am Blunty. We'll catch you next time. Thank you as always to patrons that's scrolling up above there, and we'll catch you next time. Wiggle, 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 stop. 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 Wiggle, 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 stop.